Hey guys, this is Brian at OBEDIA, and today I'm going to just talk a little bit about compressors and compression in an attempt to hopefully help you guys to demystify adding compression to your audio mixes. Now, the thing that's very confusing about compressors very often is, what do they do? A compressor's job is very simply to take an incoming audio signal and, based on some settings which we make inside of the compressor, it will reduce that incoming signal by a certain number of decibels, again, based on the settings which we make in the compressor. There's four major controls that we need to take a look at in a compressor. The first, most important one, is the threshold. The threshold is essentially a bouncer at, let's say, a big club. The bouncer's job is to allow only some people to come through the door. The threshold does the same thing. The threshold very simply states that if we set a decibel range, if our audio goes above that decibel range, then it will be allowed to go into the compressor. So in this case, if you take a look at my threshold setting, I'm currently set at -20 decibels. So what this means is that if my incoming audio signal goes above 20 decibels, then it's going to be allowed into the compressor, and then the compressor is going to start doing its job and reducing the signal of that incoming audio. That's all that the threshold does. Again, it's like a bouncer at a club. It decides when the audio gets to come through the door. The next most important control is the ratio control. And if we take a look at the ratio, we notice that we've got some different numbers here. On the left-hand side, we've got 2.0, and if we change this, it goes up a little bit, and we can change it by going down. And then we have a colon, and then we have another number. This is the reduction ratio. The job of the reduction ratio is sort of like another bouncer at the club. Once you get through the door, now you got to talk to somebody to get into the VIP party, let's say. So this is the bouncer for the VIP party. And his job is essentially to say that whoever comes through the door to the VIP party, well, that's when they're going to get affected by the compressor. So in this case, as I change these numbers, you'll notice that again, they're going to change with my little readout right here. What this means is that for every 2 decibels coming into this compressor that I go above the threshold, I'm going to reduce that incoming signal by 1 decibel. So this is a 2-to-1 ratio. This is pretty normal and something you're probably going to find in most compressors, and most compressor usage is about a 2-to-1 ratio, sometimes 2.5. Sometimes it might be more than that, and sometimes it might be a lot less. It really depends on your incoming audio signal. But again, the entire point of our reduction ratio right here is to say that for every 2 decibels which we go above our threshold, we're going to reduce by 1 decibel. It's really as simple as that. Let's take a look at one of the next most important controls in a compressor, and that is the attack. The attack control, very simply, is going to decide how quickly we're going to hear the effect of this compressor. So if we bring our attack control upwards, we're going to hear the effect of this compressor a lot less. And if we bring this down, we're going to hear the effect of this compressor much more. So that's the job of the attack. The next control, and the final we're going to take a look at today, is the release. The release, very simply, is how quickly we're going to go back to normal, back from our compressed audio signal. So if we change our release and we bring it up, this is going to cause for the compressed signal to be compressed for much longer in the mix. If we bring our release down, we're going to let go of the compressed signal much quicker, and we're going to come back to normal from our compressed signal out of our compressor. That's all that the release does. These two controls are very much like the attack and release controls, which you will find on many digital synthesizers, hardware synthesizers, and things like that. So if you think of playing a note on a synthesizer and changing the attack, if you bring the attack up on a synthesizer and play a note, you're going to hear the effect of that note being played fading in rather than happening immediately. And if you change the release by dragging it upwards, you'll hear that note be held for much longer. If you drop the release, you'll hear that note go away much quicker in your output audio signal. That's really all that the attack and the release does. So, again, to reiterate, our threshold's job is very simply to decide when the audio should start to be compressed by the compressor. we make a setting in our threshold in decibels, and based on that decibel setting, if the audio happens to go above that minimum level, the audio will then be allowed into the compressor. It then moves on to the ratio, and the reduction controls in the ratio is going to determine how many decibels we're going to compress that audio by. In this case, for every 2 decibels above the threshold setting which we have made, we're going to compress our audio by 1 decibel. That's really as simple as it is. And of course, finally, attack and release. Attack is going to tell us how soon we're going to hear the effect of that compressor, and release is going to tell us how soon we're going to allow our incoming signal to go back to normal before it was compressed. So I hope that this has been useful to you guys. Again, compressors can come in all sorts of flavors and all shapes and forms, but you're generally always going to see our 4 major controls: threshold, ratio, attack, and release. As long as you've got those, and sometimes even if you don't, you'll be able to operate a compressor just fine. Have some fun experimenting, play around with some presets, get to know how a compressor affects your recorded audio, and you'll get to know how you should use it in your digital mixing and mastering world. I hope that this has been useful to you guys. As always, please stay in touch with me. My email is brian@obedia.com. You can get me on Twitter at twitter.com/OBEDIAtutor and on Facebook at facebook.com/OBEDIAtutor. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.